Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet, and today we are going to be talking about apples. Now, I know every time there is one big, highly publicized story about something that some police officer did somewhere, half the people in this country immediately get up from the kitchen table where they're currently consuming their meal of boot and boot, throw the boot down, and start immediately yelling about how that officer is indeed a bad apple. It's just a bad apple. Just a bad apple. Of course, these are the same people who don't even know that the full saying is that a bad apple will spoil the whole bunch. Why? Because it's just easier to yell bad apple and then get back to your meal of eating boots, being very happy about it. So, it is once again time for our reoccurring weekly segment entitled, What the Hell's Going On with the Police State? This is where I rustle up a whole bunch of smaller stories from around the country that you probably haven't even heard because, of course, you're fixated on the one big national story, whatever that is, on that given day. And that's cool. There's only so much news you can consume. That's why I'm here for you. But also, I want you to be able to fully understand that when there's a story and somebody jumps up and screams bad apple, that there is a whole fucking basket of bad apples. They're just ignoring the rest of them. If you don't believe me, well, let me show you a quick dozen or so stories that I rustled up since our last episode of What the Hell's Going On with the Police State? You know, because there's so goddamn many of these stories, I can just keep doing this every frickin' week. Here we go. A former Boston police officer pled guilty on Tuesday to collecting more than $20,000 in bogus overtime payments. James Carn, who is retired from the police force, pled guilty to federal charges of conspiracy to commit theft concerning programs receiving federal funds and embezzlement from an agency receiving federal funds. Carnes was one of 9 people arrested in September in the fraud scheme at the police department's evidence warehouse. Authorities say those officers collected a total of more than $200,000 in overtime pay they were not entitled to. That's right, they stole all that money from you, the people who pay taxes that then supposedly pay their salary. And for the record, all of these police officers were charged with federal crimes. Why? Because the state that they live in has a very large, very hefty police union that literally made it impossible for state investigators and state prosecutors to take care of this at a state level. Up next, a cop in New Hampshire is being investigated after posting TikTok videos making fun of police reform and making other political statements. That officer has been placed on administrative leave while the department investigates. Quote, the Bedford Police Department is aware of at least one TikTok video created by a uniformed Bedford police officer made apparently while on duty and a resulting YouTube video created to call attention to the TikTok post. The Bedford Police Department does not allow its officers to use social media while on duty, in uniform, and using department equipment and vehicles to make divisive or political statements. Please note, nowhere does the police department say that they frown upon the sort of behavior where a cop would publicly mock police training, to not kill people. Their only concern is that the cop did so in uniform or in a police vehicle or using police equipment while saying it. They weren't concerned about the public mocking of being retrained to not, murder people. They're just against people doing it on their dime. A video posted to YouTube entitled Bedford, New Hampshire On-Duty Officer TikToks Exposed shows multiple TikTok clips allegedly recorded by Bedford police officers. In the first one, the officer who's not identified appears in videos with text that reads how the media and liberals want the police to be, and he pretends to stop violent calls by shouting requests out of his cruiser window. As opposed to what he normally does, which is shooting bullets out of his cruiser window. A simple search for the reported TikTok account shows that it has amassed nearly 175,000 followers. The account is currently set to private. Why? Because police love to brag about how they are their own insulated cult and protected from the law, and they love to joke about it and share it with their family members and their friends, but they don't want the liberals to know. They're literally saying the quiet part out loud, that they have contempt for you. They're telling you at every twist and turn, and yet approximately half this country just ignores it, or laughs, or agrees with what they do. This is why we are rapidly becoming that shithole nation. Next! Police union wants to help ex-cop who shot Tamir Rice get his job back. You mean killed Tamir Rice? Yeah, of course, we don't want to put killed in the title. The Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association, the union representing Cleveland police officers, is trying to revive its efforts to help reinstate Timothy Loman. The union had an unsuccessful attempt in an appeals court last month where a 3-judge panel upheld Loman's termination, saying the union didn't properly file court records with attorneys for the city of Cleveland in a timely manner. They didn't say, no, he's a murdering shitbag. They just said, your paperwork wasn't filed correctly. Loman was fired in 2017 for lying on his job application to join the Cleveland Police Force, an internal affairs investigation found. Also, they only found that out because he was being investigated for possible murder of a 12-year-old child, and they were like, oh wow, look, he lied on his paperwork. Let's fire him for that instead. The young officer wrote on his application that he left Independence Police Department for personal reasons, but records show the department determined him to be unfit with, quote, an inability to emotionally function. But that's okay. The Cleveland Police Force quickly snapped him up, gave him a gun, put him in a patrol car, and then he went out and shot a 12-year-old boy. Of course, now the police union, even after all these years, is still trying to get him his job back. Why? Because police will always protect other police and their interests before they will protect any of you. Next!
Breaking news just into our newsroom now. A Denver police officer has been arrested for vehicular assault. We're told he was arrested earlier this evening. He's 38-year-old Jacob Marsh, being held on an investigative hold, so he's not been formally charged. But a law enforcement source tells the problem solvers Marsh was in his patrol car chasing a suspect in wrong-way traffic when he crashed into a fellow police cruiser. It happened 2 weeks ago in the 4800 block of North Quebec Street.
So to confirm, the only reason the cop is being investigated is because he crashed into another cop. Next! 2 New Jersey police officers charged for allegedly punching a teenager and lying about it. Uh-oh, we're getting to the portion of the show where I have to start acting shocked again. Look out. 2 New Jersey police officers are facing civil rights and obstruction of justice charges for allegedly assaulting an Arab-American teenager and then lying about it on a police report, according to the New Jersey U.S. Attorney's Office. The Patterson police officers appeared before Magistrate Judge Andre Espinosa on Tuesday to face charges that they allegedly deprived Osama al-Sadi, then 19, of his constitutional right to be free from unreasonable search and seizures, and then lied about the incident on a police report, court documents state. The December 2020 incident was captured on surveillance video and prompted an investigation by New Jersey Attorney General's office in February. This is a common theme amongst stories of this ilk. Police do something fucked up. Police officially lie about it in a press release. The press release gets picked up by the media. The media parrots whatever the police tell them to say. Then, sometime later, somebody else comes forward with some security cam footage or cell phone footage showing that the police lied. Then the police go, I'm shocked, and then talk about investigating themselves. The 2 cops also stand accused of making numerous false allegations in their report. Quote, For instance, the police report falsely stated that the victim had walked towards the officers screaming profanities and acting belligerent, and that the victim had struck one of the two cops with a closed fist in the chest. None of this was true, a press release from the New Jersey U.S. Attorney's Office states. The Paterson Police Department said in a statement that they are taking the allegations of misconduct seriously and that they're taking several significant steps to address them, citing an audit of the department. Wow, and officers being equipped with body-worn cameras. Yeah, they've been adding body-worn cameras to police all over the country for the last, 10 years or so. How's that been working out? Next! Study reveals that police have killed more than 100 children since 2015. More than 20 of them were younger than 15. Why? Because at some point, the police must have thought that they were an imminent threat, and anything police feel threatened by, they shoot. Your dogs, your kids, you, it doesn't matter. Cell phone in your hand, nothing in your hand, it doesn't matter. As long as they can say that they reasonably, quote, feared for their lives, they will shoot anybody and anything. At least 111 children have died by police use of force in the U.S. over the last 6 years. Some of the victims listed in the database are unidentified without a listed age or name. Officers should show them that their safety is the #1 priority and show them that they're not here to kill them, but that they can call 911. Some of them are afraid of calling the police department. Yeah, you know what you call the teenagers and kids who are afraid to call the police department? Kids who are still alive because they haven't called 911 and gotten shot by the police. Well played, kids. Apparently, you are the only smart person in this entire goddamned article. Next! Man dies after Alameda, California police pin him to the ground for several minutes. Gee! It seems like, since the televised death of George Floyd, where a cop essentially smothered him to death and millions of people came out of the woodwork and said, hey cops, maybe you shouldn't smother people to death, well, the cops are going out of their way to smother even more people to death. Do you know why? Because fuck you, that's why. On Tuesday, the city of Alameda, California released body camera footage of an interaction with a 26-year-old man who died after police pinned him to the ground for at least 5 minutes. Mario Gonzalez of Oakland died April 19th after what police previously called a, quote, scuffle with officers. The Alameda Police Department said Gonzalez suffered some sort of, quote, medical emergency after an interaction with police. This is the same exact sentence that was used in the original fucking paperwork about how George Floyd died. It's almost like all the police departments are retrained by the same dozen police trainers who all tell them the best way to write false police reports so that nobody asks questions. Once again, the police and their killology training will go out of their way to kill you just to ensure that no other police officers end up with so much as a scratch on them. They are only concerned with each other, not you. You are an impediment to their job. You are the thing about their job they hate the most. And if you don't believe just how much utter contempt police have for the general public, well, don't worry, because I saved one last story. Loveland police officers placed on leave over Karen Garner arrest. This is a story that we covered during last week's episode of So What the Hell's Going On with the Police State? Now I got a little update for you. Colorado authorities have placed 4 officers on leave as they continue their investigation into the arrest of Karen Garner, a 73-year-old woman who has dementia. Garner's attorney has released a video that shows the officers watching body camera footage of Garner's arrest in the Loveland PD booking office. In the clip, one of them appears to brag about the incident, telling the other, "I thought it went great. I thought we crushed it." Now, in this video, that's more than an hour long, the officers congratulate each other, they fist bump each other, they celebrate. They talk about how amazing it was. And oh, wait, come here. We're about to play the awesome part where I could hear the popping sound after I snapped her arm. That's right, 73-year-old woman with dementia.
Live TV. The body cam show. Body cams are my favorite thing to watch. I watch live TV body cams all day.
Now, for the record, while this is going on, the 73-year-old woman who has dementia with the broken arm and the separated shoulder that's still torqued behind her back while she's handcuffed and chained to a bench, she's right across that little hallway from them in a cell. She's sitting in there all alone, listening to the cops, laughing about how hilarious the live stream show is of them assaulting her and snapping her bones. And now I am going to reiterate a few points that I have made before in other videos in this series. I hate doing this goddamn series, but I have to do it because apparently half the fucking people in this country can't be bothered to see that sort of thing and be revolted by it. Instead, they just ignore it. So I am going to keep rubbing it in everybody's face, hoping that they share this sort of thing around with all their friends and family members and coworkers who talk about how every time there's a police incident, it's just a bad apple. But you see, it's not a bad apple. It's the entire culture. The bad apples have permeated all levels of policing, top to bottom. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to drop a little math on you on the way out. Before the Derek Chauvin trial began a few months ago, the police on average were killing 2.7 people a day. They pretty much maintained that same average for the last 3 years consistently. Since the day the trial began, the police killed 3.5 people a day nationwide up until the day of the verdict. The 24 hours after the verdict, the police executed 6 people. So yeah, it's time to defund the police. And if you think that's a problem, just remember, your local and state governments have been defunding your hospitals and your schools for decades. And guess what? Neither of those organizations go out of their way to kill 6 people a day. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet, and I am out. Peace.